All right, hello, everybody. My name is Alex. I am the Director of Media here at the Spartabots, and I am also your Director of Production and Director of Photography for this Robot Reveal event. It is incredibly exciting to be back here for a second year for in-person Robot Reveal. It's something that we started last year, and we really liked how it went, and so we're really excited to share with you our event this year. We've made some insane upgrades to both the tech on stage in front of me and on the graphics that you'll see behind me today. And we're going to hope that they run without any hitches today. As you may have seen in some of our promotion material this year, the 2023 Robot Reveal won't just feature our own robot. We've also got 4 other teams here from the PNW FRC district who are going to be presenting their robots. We sort of sent out an invite earlier this year in November, and we were actually really surprised to see the large response that we got. So thank you, everyone, to all the teams who volunteered to come out here to help us out. Before we get started, though, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for graciously supporting Team 2976 in our operations. Events like these would absolutely not be possible without the backing that we receive from organizations like Microsoft, First Washington, Boeing, the First Tech Credit Union, T-Mobile, the Gene Haas Foundation, HCL Tech, the Lowe's Innovation Labs, and the Washington Business Week. Also, I'd like the production of all 5 reveal videos in the program that you'll see tonight was powered by DJI, Canon, Adobe, and Lensrentals. They provide some incredible products and services that allow our world-class media team to produce the high-quality content that you know and love out of the Spartabots. Speaking of the media team, I'd like to give them a huge shout out right now. Between all of us, the 2023 Robot Reveal was made with over 500 production hours, and I could not have done it without the help of my talented photographers, editors, and cinematographers. Some of them are back there tonight helping us run all of the events, or run all of the graphics and all of the lighting from the control booth. And, you know, with all of the work that we put into these videos, not just 1, but 5 this year, it's absolutely incredible how many people have had to help me, and I'm really grateful for, you know, the work that they've done. Finally, you have probably already seen it all over our social media channels, but this year is a special season for us. We'll be competing in our 15th season in 2023, and we're taking advantage of that to celebrate our team's storied legacy. And it all starts with the alternate branding standard. Our Year 15 alternate brand hit the sketchbooks last April, and we put in hard work to develop and refine it for its release last November. We're hoping that the fresh, bold look this season is one that you're enjoying, and we're excited to bring you more unique alternate brand identities as we see opportunities to develop them. The most obvious one that's coming up ahead of us is going to be the Year 20 brand, but that's still a few years out, so we'll be giving you guys more information as we sort of get to that. This year's first robotics competition game is called Charged Up, and to familiarize you all, we're going to be playing a quick animation provided to us by First.
Welcome to the 2023 First Robotics Competition game, Charged Up, presented by Haas.
2 alliances of 3 teams each compete to score cubes and cones into their grid to charge up their community. The alliances earn additional points if their robots are docked to or engaged with their charge station. Robots start each match in their community and may be preloaded with either 1 cube or 1 cone. Each alliance may choose where to stage 4 additional game pieces. During the first 15 seconds of the match, robots are autonomous. Without guidance from their drivers, robots score preloaded game pieces, collect and score additional game pieces, and are docked to or engaged with their charge station. Charge station points earned during auto count towards a potential activation bonus. The grid has nodes specific to cones and cubes, and some where either a cone or cube can be scored. During the remaining 2 minutes and 15 seconds, drivers control their robots. Robots continue to collect cubes and cones from human players at their substations to deliver power to the grids in their community. Each community contains 3 grids. The center grid is the cooperation grid. A link is a line of 3 game pieces scored on the same row. Completing enough links earns the alliance a sustainability bonus. If each alliance scores at least 3 game pieces in the cooperation grid, the sustainability bonus threshold is lowered for both alliances. Robots are protected within their community and loading zones. As time runs out, robots race to their charge stations. Alliances earn points for each robot docked to or engaged with the charge station. Earning enough charge station points earns the alliance the activation bonus. The alliance that earns the most points wins the match.
So the animation's a little bit confusing, and this year's game is sort of all over the place. So to familiarize you guys a little bit more for the people who aren't within the FRC community, we'll be explaining the game again, but this time verbally. So the game is split into 3 distinct phases, the first of which is known as the autonomous phase. This is the first 15 seconds of the match. During this time, driver input is entirely illegal, so robots need to be preloaded with all kinds of instructions that allow them to score pieces. During the autonomous period, robots are supposed to be taking cones and cubes, either preloaded on their robot or from the field, and scoring them into one of 3 possible levels that are on the grid near their driver stations. At the end of autonomous, their goal is to end on the charging station, which are those little balancing platforms on each side of the field. They're supposed to end on those either docked or balanced to them. The next portion of the game is called the teleoperated period, and this is the bulk of the match. This is 2 minutes and 15 seconds after autonomous, and driver input obviously is going to be legal during this time. And robots will continue to score cones and cubes that can be loaded from their human player stations or from the field into, again, one of 3 possible levels. These are worth 2, 3, and 5 points respectively, with a bonus of 1 point per level during the autonomous period. The last 30 seconds of the teleoperated period is known as the endgame period. During this time, robots can continue to score cones and cubes, but also their goal is to end the match on the charging station, once again, either docked or engaged, worth 6 and 10 points respectively. So now that you're familiar with the game, let's get into the bulk of tonight's content. Each of the 5 teams tonight will be presenting their new robots one at a time, starting with Team 948 NRG. Hailing from Newport High School in Bellevue, Washington, the Newport Robotics Group, more commonly known as NRG, will be competing in their 22nd season of FRC this year. NRG is the oldest team here tonight, with a long and storied history, most notably making an appearance on the Einstein Finals in 2019. They're an open alliance team this year, and have been posting steady progress updates on their robot since kickoff. Today, they're excited to present the final product of their work. Please welcome to the field, Dodo.
Yeah, let's go. Like what? 새로운 기분 I like that. 고민 따윈 already done. 색감과 기분 보는 게 재치, that's not my fault. 도저히 I don't care at all. 내 멋대로 갈 거야. 필요 없어 older. Don't need no guidance, I'm making my way. I'm on my way, yeah. Run to the top. 난 언제든 straight, yeah. 원래 두려운 게 없어 난. 상관없어, call me trouble, or you can call me weirdo. 나로 살고 싶어. 똑같은 어울린 채로 다 가질 듯한 attitude, 그거면 돼. Put my sneakers on. 하나 둘 ready get set go. Put my sneakers on. Put my sneakers on. 하나 둘 ready get set go. 빨리 가보자고 yeah yeah. 자유롭게 뛰고 싶어 다른 사람 시선들 don't care now. 어디까지 가게 될지 모르지만 일단 start right now. Yeah, alright. 멈추지 마 to the top. 같이 걸어가 보자고. Yeah, yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Taylor, the CTO of the Newport Robotics Group, also known as Team NRG 948.
Hey everyone, and I'm Ohm, Strategy Captain and Programming Lead for Team 948. Before we get started, we'd like to take a quick moment to thank Team 2976. This is the first robot reveal we've done in a while, and we are excited to join everyone here on this platform. So before we get started, let me tell you the story of our 2022 season. Last year, we could cycle really well, but we couldn't score many points as we targeted the low goal. This led us to push ourselves to be a high-scoring bot this year.
We learned from our mistakes last year, and we wanted to shift from the implicit bias in a voting system to a more quantitative process in an evaluation matrix. I just said a lot of big words. I'll tell you what they mean. So this is our evaluation matrix, and on the left, we have all our prototyping ideas, and at the top, we have our design criteria. Basically, what we judge our robot off of and what we want, the aspects of our robot that we want to have. So as you can see at the top, we have subgroup simplicity, which includes mech simplicity, programming simplicity, and system simplicity. This allows our team to have a holistic view of how all our designs impact our robot and our subgroups. And the weighting allows us to play to our team's capabilities. So teams or subgroups that might have less people, less mentors, it might be more important to make their job easier on the robot than a team with more people, more skills, more mentors. So that's a really big part that we wanted to add. And then we have functionality for the robot, which includes robustness, repairability, and agility. So these aspects are important for every robot every single year, but the weighting at the bottom also allows us to adjust it to the game. So with Charged Up this year, we were able to prioritize repairability because we predicted that there would be high-speed collisions and all that fun stuff. So about our prototypes. We had 5 picking mechanisms and 3 placing mechanisms. And so we ranked each of them amongst each other in their own category. So all picking mechanisms against each other and all placing mechanisms against each other. And then we multiplied by the weighting, did some math, added them all up, and then we got those totals on the right. Our team, we only had the capability to do about 6 prototyping groups. So we went with the top 4 scoring picking mechanisms and the top 2 placing mechanisms. From there, we went and we prototyped for about like a week. And so these are some of our prototypes. The one on the left is our interpretive dance. I'll go into more about what it does and how it works. And then we had the unicorn, which is the one with the cone right there. And it's called the unicorn because it's just a piece of 1x1 that sticks out like a unicorn's horn. And then we had the Barbie, which is just the gray wheels. And it's called the Barbie because it's basic and just a roller bar intake. So after we began prototyping and we developed proof of concept, we went on to the evaluation matrix once again. So with this evaluation matrix, it's the same, but we added a linkage category because we wanted to distinguish between the placing mechanisms and the linkage, which is basically how our robot gets from one point inside of our robot. So that's what changed. And then we also ranked them against each other. So it goes 1, 2, 1, 2. And we added a performance category because now that we had a proof of concept, we were able to know which designs worked better and which ones didn't. And then that allowed us to go with the interpretive dance as a picking mechanism, the elevator as a linkage mechanism, and the grabber arm as a placing mechanism. Okay, so I said a lot of things, and you might not know what all the names mean because they're very weird, and we want it to be a little goofy. But to start, we have a swerve drive base with a U cutout, and inside that U cutout is our interpretive dance. So it's called the interpretive dance because it was really hard to explain to people and our design team how it worked to each other because we had to go make a lot of motions, which is like a whole dance in explaining it. But I will do my best to explain it to you right now. So the interpretive dance is a through-the-bumper intake, and it consists of 4 hex shafts, which are stacked with these green compliant wheels, and they're separated by spacers. So the parallel shafts spin inversely of each other through bevel gears, and all the bevel gears are run by one Neo motor. So because all the parallel shafts are spinning opposite of each other, they all spin in one direction, which is up into our robot. And one of the kind of interesting things to note is that because our intake is built the way that it is, the cone, with the base being the biggest part of the cone, will always make contact first with the intake, which means that our cones will always come in base first, which allows us to have the cone in a known orientation. And then for the cube, it's symmetrical, so it doesn't really matter too much. And then to talk a little bit about our iterations for this, at first when we were working with our proof of concept, we used duct tape, but that didn't really work because the duct tape kept falling off, and then we were like, we have a 3D printer, let's try to 3D print something that might work. And then we 3D printed these red grippers, but that was a waste of time and materials because that did not have enough friction either. Yeah. Another issue that we ran into was how to intake cones that were base first, because we wanted to intake from any orientation, but we noticed that when cones were coming in base first, they kept hitting the side of the intake, which meant that we could not, we just kept pushing them, and then we couldn't take them in. So we tilted our intake at a 12.5 degree angle to make sure that it was able to pick up cones and cubes from any way that they were placed. Yeah, so let's talk about how our claw works. So after the game element goes through our intake, the interpretive dance, it goes to this claw trapdoor mechanism kind of thing. And at first we had these polycarb like door hinges, but we switched that out to replace them with brooms. So we went to Home Depot and bought 2 brooms and just cut off the ends of them because we were like, that's going to work better than polycarb since they were more flexible and they allowed us to be more creative with our designs. So they also cleaned the elements very well. But the brooms allowed us to slow down the velocity of the game element that's coming through the interpretive dance. Because the wheels are spinning so fast, it allows it to slow down before it hits the 2 trapdoors at the top, which are connected by hinges. And then it's like a one direction claw because the brooms are placed at an angle. And so once the game element gets placed inside the claw, the entire elevator will rotate, which is why we called it an escalator in the prototyping stage. So the entire elevator tilts, and as it tilts, the claw will rotate with it, and gravity will just flip the cone back into the upright position, and the claw is placed on the carriage of the elevator, so it'll travel up, allowing us to score mid and high. So that's basically it for the mechanical, and Ohm will talk to you about programming.
Thank you, Taylor. So to start off, we begin programming our drivetrain. Last year, we used Swerve Drive for the first time since 2012. While it worked, there was major drift that our drive team just had to compensate for. So to iterate upon it, we utilized new methods by calculating theoretical constants based off of mass, wheel distances, and more. Aside from programming our drive base, we created automated lineup sequences by utilizing April tags. So for those who don't know what April tags are, they're like knockoff QR codes where it'll return a distance and a pose away from our robot when scanned by a camera. So from the poses that April tags return, we calculated the distance to our scoring position that the operator can choose from a selection menu in our controller and shuffleboard. This greatly reduces our cycle times and makes the scoring process way more efficient. Once we received the bot, we began tuning our escalator by using a trapezoidal motion profile to smoothly interpolate between the elevator's current position and its goal state, which are the scoring positions on our pose. Next, we tuned our carriage by using a profiled PID loop. By implementing this loop, we reduced major oscillation in our autonomous period, and it just was a lot nicer. Finally, we've been hard at work to create an autonomous path selection that lets us start at 4 different positions, select whether we wish to pick up the amount of game pieces, whether we want to auto balance on the charge station, as you guys see on the video demonstrated up there, and we could choose a delay too. This allows us to be really flexible for other teams, and we can work around them. So while we designed all these complicated mechanisms, and it's been really fun, our design is viable, but time just hasn't been on our side. For the case we aren't able to deliver a scoring robot, our elevator mechanism becomes fixable at comp. 948 has developed a contingency plan. This plan lets us remove the elevator at the robot and cover the intake with a sheet of polycarb, letting us store a game piece in the interpretive dance that we can deliver to our alliance mates and feeder bot. Along with that, we can also score into the hybrid node just by outtaking from the interpretive dance. While this solution doesn't result in many points, we've tested it and it works pretty well. So aside from robot functionality, one thing we have been hard at work at is to redo our robot branding. This year, we anodized our robot. While we wanted to color our robot, we chose not to spray paint or powder coat. This was because while spray painting was cheap and easy, it would create a lot of scratches, and we just weren't willing to do that. Aside from that, powder coating is extremely expensive and just wasn't viable for us. So we chose to anodize. Ultimately, after we anodized, we actually noticed that our aluminum got strengthened and it prevented scratching. This was definitely doable for us because our head advisor is a chemistry teacher and he had access to a huge hood fume and necessary chemicals.
Yeah, so as you can see at the top is our most successful anodizing piece, and then you can see the chemicals that we're dipping them in, and our very much improvised cut pieces of PVC pipe, and then you can see our gussets that are anodized, and then we did fail a lot of times to get here, but it's all part of the process, right? But that is everything for us. So thank you for listening, and I will hand it back off to Alex.
Interpretive dance, huh? Interesting naming for their mechanisms. I really like it. It's very creative. We'll be watching and supporting Team 948 as they go off to compete at their competitions during their Charged Up season. So next up on the docket is Team 4131, the Iron Patriots. Based out of Liberty High School in Renton, the Iron Patriots are currently in their 11th season of competition and have established themselves as a force to be reckoned with on the field, earning the District Engineering Inspiration Award in 2022 and 2023, and the first Impact Award in 2020 and 2022. This year, they spent countless hours designing, machining, wiring, and coding during the last 8 weeks and are proud to present their 2023 robot, Phobos.
In this gothic underground city, we all sin. If I bring a couple rounds with me, then we all win. I came back and brought the crown with me. The king's can't break your nexus and your neck, cause everybody's on your head.
Just like kick your butt, go run them up, then paint my nails. Never learned to raise my hand, was too busy raising hell. Everything I know I am, you should go and save yourself. Thought you had my number, huh? Congratulations, played yourself.
Underground utopia, dynasties and dystopia. Fear is never an option, so dying is not a real phobia. I'm beating the odds, rising to every occasion. That's ever defeated the gods. Switch up the mind, nothing but champions coming. I'm rolling up one of those squad.
Hold still, but like back then. Talk back till I snap back. This ain't brown, this that dark black. This that pitch black, jet black. Snap your ex, watch me give them flashbacks.
Precious rising fast.
All right, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And my name is Vachin, and I'm the team president for Team 4131.
My name is Carson, and I'm the team's head of design.
And my name is June, and I'm the team's head of software.
And we are so excited to show you guys our robot Phobos today. I'm going to hand it off to Carson to talk a little bit about our robot design and how it came to be.
All right. So we started off the season by prioritizing the parts of the game we wanted to be able to complete. First of all, we chose balancing. We chose this because we required no special mechanisms to do so, and it was worth a considerable amount of points. Second, we chose scoring cones because while they were harder to pick up, we were able to score them on 78% of the game scoring locations. Next, we did completing links, as they were worth 5 points each, and they required no extra work to do other than just scoring. Next, we prioritized cube pickup and scoring cubes because they would allow us to score links on the middle and high rows. And lastly, we chose knocked cone pickup because it was a considerable design challenge to be able to pick up these cones, and we didn't anticipate them to be a large part of the game. But with that out of the way, here's a basic overview of our robot design. We have 4 main mechanisms on the robot. our drive base, our arm, our claw, and our wrist. I'll go into detail into each of these mechanisms. And so to begin, we needed a way to move. As our second year of using Swerve Drive, this drivetrain stood out over all the others, like Mecanum or West Coast, because of a few main reasons. First of all is its speed. It can travel at 4 meters per second, which is pretty fast, and it allows us to get fast cycle times. We also chose Swerve because of the independence between rotation and movement, meaning we can drive around the field while rotating. Lastly, it can also counter defense very well, which we also guessed correctly was going to be a big part of competitive matches this year. The base itself is 30 by 26 inches, and we have a special configuration of our Swerve drives, which have two main purposes themselves. You can see the X shape of the motors on top, and these, by rotating our Swerve drives 90 degrees, this allows us to put our wheels closer to the edge of the bumpers, which means it's easier to get on the charge station, and it's also easier to access the mechanisms inside the Swerve drive modules. Let's see, you'll also see mounts on the side for pneumatic air tanks. However, we wound up not using those because we didn't need them in the arm or claw design. And then on the bottom picture, you can also see we have a battery mounted horizontally at the front. We chose this to keep our center of mass low and to act as ballast in to oppose the weight of the arm in the back of the robot. And then on the top left, you can also see we mounted all our electronics underneath the robot, which we found last year to be very effective in keeping everything organized and accessible. Yes, regardless of how well we can drive, though, we still needed a way to actually score pieces. It took about 2 weeks of arguing, but we eventually came up with this arm design. Our priority was to keep it simple, and so we have a single pivot point with a telescope on the end. The pivot point is driven by two Neos, and it's geared down to 240 to 1, so we have a considerable amount of torque while still having a decent amount of speed. Our telescope is driven by a 775 motor because we ran out of Neo gearboxes. And we are able to score at every single scoring location with this. And so with this arm mechanism, we're able to position ourselves with these configurations, giving us a very adaptable way to interact with game pieces. We can pick up cubes and standing cones from the front of the robot, cubes and knocked over cones from the back of the robot. We can pick up cubes and cones from the double substation, and we can also score at the hybrid and middle rows from both the front and the back. And lastly, we can score at the high row from the back of the robot. We've also found we can shoot cubes by putting the arm backwards, extending the telescope, and driving our intake backwards. But to enable us to pick up and score these game pieces from this broad set of positions, I found out we needed a third degree of freedom, which is our wrist. Our wrist is driven by a single Neo 550 motor, and it runs around a Lazy Susan bearing to keep it stable. It allows us 180 degrees of rotation, meaning we can pick up cones specifically from the front and the back and be able to score them always right side up on the nodes. And then finally our claw. We decided to keep it very simple this year. We use one motor and 0 pneumatics. We have 4 wheels on the front, which using rubber bands to compress the pivoting arms in allows us to keep a strong grip on cubes and cones. The only time we drop them is if we're hit by defense quickly or go over rough terrain enough. The one downside we found with this claw, and it's pretty fast in all other aspects, is that it's difficult to pick up from the ground in front of the robot. And now that's roughly all about our robot, and Vachon will talk about our success at the Week 1 Glacier Peak competition.
All right, so with that, we showed off our robot to the world at Glacier Peak. We were chosen as first pick for the second alliance, And with that, we worked really hard, and we were able to get to the finals, and we were event finalists. Our drive team worked really hard, and we were big challengers and kept focusing and working hard in finals, and we gave a tough challenge to Jack and the Bot in finals, but in the end, we lost in the finals and we were event finalists. Another thing, we also won the Engineering Inspiration Award. As you see on the left, there are some of us that are wearing 2 medals. So that was really cool to just go to the first competition and just have 2 medals right off the bat. So we're really proud of our performance at Glacier Peak, and with all that, it came with driver control and driver practice and the team working hard. But the driver, can I have the macro pad real quick? Yeah. So the driver controls were made really easy with this little macro pad. We're able to select exactly what grid we go to and what specific node that we're scoring in and what height we're scoring, and it automatically drives the robot there as soon as we hit the consent button. With that, we really needed a complex way to talk and have driver communications. This was the flowchart we came up with at the start of the season, where coach selects the bay and the row and the position that we're scoring in and announces that to drive team, and drive team gives a verbal confirmation and puts it on this macro pad, which worked really well. Really surprised that there's not as many teams using it. Really recommend it. But yeah, so as soon as the drivers acknowledge it and dial it into the macro pad, the driver 1 hits the consent button, and we go automatically to the scoring position, and as soon as we let go of that, it scores, and then the robot starts driving away and driver gets control. And all that sounds really complex, and it is, and our amazing software team made that all come to life, so I'm going to let June talk a little bit about that.
All right. So, swerving into the programming portion of our team, let me just start off by saying that this entire process has not been easy. Starting off the season, we were met with an immediate challenge, and that was with the release of the 2023 WPI lib libraries. We were unable to use our passcode for our swerve drive base, so we had to start completely from scratch from there. However, in this process, we gained a lot of extra control over what we were going to be doing for movement, and just an overall better understanding of how swerve worked. This tied directly into how we programmed our autonomous routines. And with our autonomous routines, we utilized Path Planner, as many other teams are using. And basically with Path Planner, we're able to visualize and create the paths that our robot is going to follow, and just make sure that we're having that repeatability of following an exact path and scoring exact pieces as we please. How we actually got to this place, though, we used a lot of PID control loops. And basically using PID control loops, what we're able to do is utilize sensors that we have on the robot to make sure every last subsystem is performing as well as it can, and it's doing exactly what we want it to do. So you can see this is present on our drive base. By using a gyroscope on the robot, we are able to auto balance an auton. And as you saw previously, we also use PID control loops on the arm. All that snappy movement, the efficiency, and just the sheer repeatability of it, that came from well-tuned PID control loops. And we just got there through a lot of experimentation and just testing overall. And yeah, through a lot of practice, we were able to really nail down those really efficient movements. And that's what our team has been placing a lot of emphasis on. We want to make sure that we are reliable and we're getting repeatable results. And once we have all that tuning in place and we're able to give as much control as we can to our drivers, next we started thinking, how are we going to have the robot think for itself? And so as you can see up here, we have a Photon Vision dashboard. And basically, what Photon Vision is, it allows us to utilize a camera on the robot to receive a bunch of data from the field by recognizing the locations of specific April tags, which look basically like QR codes. And by using the exact distance and angle relative to the robot, we're able to interpolate its exact position in real time. And so this really opened up a whole world of possibilities, and it just allowed us to gain a lot more control with automizing everything we can on the robot, such as driving to specific positions and running the arm to places using the macro pad. And so after we have all of these pieces in place and we have the entire program working together, what we finally came up with was automized scoring. And so you can see it in the video here, and as Vachan showcased, we're using a macro pad to select specific grids and nodes, and the robot will automatically drive to the specific position of that grid and node and run the arm to its relative position. And this is sort of my Mona Lisa, my Space Needle, if you will. We are really proud of this, and through this automation, we are really able to sort of unleash the full potential of Phobos.
All right, thank you, June, and thank you to Spartabots for hosting this event and giving us this opportunity, and thank you all for being here, and we hope to see you guys at our next event, Yakima.
4131, they made a very impressive showing at their last event, Glacier Peak, last weekend. As they already mentioned, they did incredibly well, and I'm really excited to see where they go with Phobos this year. So our next team who is going to be presenting is going to be Team 5937, MI Robotics. They represent the Mercer Island High School in, you guessed it, Mercer Island, Washington. Formed in the 2016 Stronghold season. They're competing in their 8th season of FRC this year, and most notably took event wins in the 2017 season. They're here tonight to show off their charged up competitor, Shenanigans. Take it away.
So tall, I could give a high five to the pilot. Yeah, family tight, I keep small circle like island. Whoa, inbox full of contracts, I sign with a stylist. Yeah, blue faces blowing up like violet. Talk about the things they're gonna say when they see me, and when they see me, they just dap me up and say good to meet me. I keep it going, flowing over this and make it look easy. Easy for me to say I do this every day of the week. I'm eager to be the one they talk about when all said and done with it. I'm the feature that they want, but then they don't when I come with it. I'm a scene, still a seat, filler, blow up the numbers, and I ain't leaving no crumbs, so you know when I'm done with it. I'm a new school vibe with an old soul, oh so great. Stay paid by the boatload, don't go chasing a wave from a rowboat. Blow smoke right through the face of the ozone. Oh no, I got the bag, I'm back to just double it. I'm about to pop the top, I've been bubbling. They want the spot, but I do not cut them in. They tryna plot my drop, they been huddling. Feeling so tall, I could give a high five to the pilot. Yeah, family tight, I keep small circle like island. Whoa, inbox full of contracts, I sign with a stylist. Yeah, blue faces blowing up like violet.
I know a lot of people praying for my downfall, but the only thing that I'll be down for is being top 5, but like down 4. I'm down to earth like the ground floor, but I've been flying so long, I tend to ask people, what's the ground for? Man, I'm only headed up, see my flow volcanic, it's the fire I erupt. Heard the fans getting rowdy cause they haven't had enough. You know I'm running the city, you just running out of luck. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Joey. I'm the CTO of 5937, and we're really proud to present to you our 2023 bot, Shenanigans. So in order to give you guys like a comprehensive roundup of our design, I'd like to give you guys a brief history of our 2022 season. And so last year, we had maybe around 10 people on the team, less than 5 people who actually did FRC beforehand. And so we really overreached and we overestimated. We tried way too many things, and we were not good at any of them, to be quite frank. And we really didn't look online as much as we should have. So we really wanted to fix those issues for this season. At the beginning of the season, we didn't really have any specific criteria. So instead of designing it, because that requires brain power, we just waited a bit and waited for other people to design their bots and then publicize their designs and then steal their designs. Because why would I do the work when there are smarter people to do it for me? So at the start of the season, we took 7461, Sushi Squad, they're presenting after us. We took their intake design and literally just copy-pasted it. In fact, I stole their old intake plates because I'm just that lazy. And so thank you. It's good to see such good recognition of my laziness. Anyways, so right after this, we took our elevators that we bought last year, and we went into the diagonal elevator archetype, which is what like a lot of teams are doing. Again, because I'm lazy and I don't have a creative bone. What can I say? So after this, we discovered that a 2-stage elevator, or an elevator with only one moving part, which we currently have right here, wasn't actually long enough to reach the 3rd level. And since this would eliminate 1/3 of our scoring positions, we decided to try and make a 3-stage elevator. So again, using 7461's intake and using another team, 49.9, the Falcons, their over-the-bumper ground intake, basically the thing that sticks out in front of the bumper, we stole theirs and we copy-pasted it, and we tried to make a design that would go till 3. And so we were really happy with this, and then we eagerly awaited for parts to ship. And then right about now, the Texas flood happened. And for those that don't know, Rev Robotics is like a main FRC vendor, and they're based in Texas. And so with that, we didn't really have any of our parts for like 2 weeks. Yeah. And then out of an 8-week build season, this is like 25% of our time, right? So that's kind of a pain. And then after this, it was winter break already. February, I think it was like 20th. And we had no bot. We had the drive base. And we realized that we were in a bit of a pickle. So on Monday morning of winter break, I opened up YouTube and procrastinated, like every normal high schooler. And I found this YouTube video, the Comets 3357. And so I'm sure many of you guys may know where I'm going with this. But again, they did really well. And I was like, why not just copy them? So our bot is what I did, thank you, my attempt at copying 3357's bot to the best of my ability. So even though we don't have all the fancy like machining parts and all the machining tools that they did, this bot is just sort of an attempt at copying theirs. It's a arm-on-elevator bot. And because their intake actually required hard work, we took the EveryBot intake. And for those of you who don't know, the EveryBot is like a robot design published early in the season by a team called the Robots. They're sponsored by NASA. They're pretty good. And we copied their design and then put it on 3357's design, and that's what we have here. So I wanted to make it not stow like this, because for those of you guys who don't know, at the beginning of an FRC game, your bot has to fit completely within the frame. But I'm bad at design, which is why I have other people do it for me. So that's why it stows up. That's why it is positioned like this, because this is how we actually have to start a match. It's kind of weird. So anyways, if I could have Alti demonstrate some things for us. I'm just gonna like give a quick rundown of our design. We went with a West Coast drive because I didn't want to do swerve because I thought it was gonna be hard. Probably would have been easier in the hindsight, but it's okay. That's our West Coast drive, freshly painted. Looks decent actually. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, on our West Coast drive we have an elevator. It's a dual stage elevator, so basically you can pull one stage of it up, and okay, realistically I should probably be like doing this with a powered bot, but I kind of broke the bot yesterday, so we're going with this. So that's our elevator. It goes up and down. It gives us more reach. In total, we have maybe 46 inches of horizontal reach and almost 27, I want to say, of vertical. Don't really remember. And then, wow, I guess someone really didn't like my, okay. Arm. So we have an arm. It's mounted on top of the elevator on the very end, and it rotates using motors at the bottom of the elevator. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And so on the arm is powered with 2 Neos in max planetaries for a total gear ratio of 180:1. This allows for us to have a lot of torque, and wow, damn, okay. And it also allows for us to have a like 3/4 of a second 0 to 90, 0 to 120 turn. And on this arm we have the intake, the aforementioned EveryBot intake, which I stole, and it's on a virtual 4-bar. So this is a mechanical engineering sort of thing. It's a linkage. So what this does is it allows the intake to be parallel with the ground, no matter what position the arm is at. So we don't have a motor at all on the arm, just the intake motor, but this allows the intake to maintain ground parallelity, maintain itself parallel to the ground, which allows for us to pick up cones from the ground, cones and cubes from the ground. This was like a really big part because we wanted to make sure that we could reduce our cycle time and score as many points as possible, because winning is technical difficulties. Okay, so yeah, that's, oh yeah. One last thing I'd like to highlight is our finishing design. As you can see, our bot is all black and it's maroon. It's kind of hard to see, it's kind of dark, but it looks really, really nice, and that is thanks to Spray Bike. It's like this sort of paint, and it leaves a really nice powder coating looking sort of finish. As you can see here, it's like not glossy. And I thought we'd just like to point that out because it was pretty good for us this year, and if other teams want to copy us, then who knows. So now I'd like to get into like the soft stuff, or the stuff that you don't see. This year, our programming sub-team was completely new. I'm actually the only programmer from last year, and I'm not programming lead, so our programming team was completely new, and they still managed to be like really good this year, or at least compared to last year. And so we started from last year, we had like 3 or 4 people. This year we had 15 or 16. And in order to utilize all of this programming manpower, we don't have 15 bots. So obviously, programmers, they're not always going to always have bot access. And so we really leaned into simulation, which is basically just simulating a bot. And this allowed us to develop programmer skills while not having 15 bots. Since we had so many people, we split them into separate teams, and this allowed us to learn vision and odometry. So this is actually a year of 2 new firsts for 5937. Last year we did not have vision or odometry, and so under our programming lead, Daniel, they really stepped up our game this year. And so to control our bot, we have like a PID controller and a feed forward, and so that sounds really complicated, but basically it just moves our arm in a way that it doesn't rapidly jerk the arm with smooth acceleration and deceleration. And then the feed forward part just makes sure our arm stays up because it's kind of heavy. It's like, I think it's like 12 pounds. And just to like summarize 5937 programming, this is like, quite honestly, the best 5937 programming has ever been, which is really impressive since we're kind of a completely rookie programming team. That about summarizes what I have to say here. I'd like to thank Alex for putting on such a great show. And I guess I hope our bot does well next week at Bonnie Lake. Thank you, guys.
You know, there's an age-old saying in the world of FRC, and it goes, steal from the best, invent the rest. And I think 5937, they're doing it really, really well. I'm really excited to see where they go with shenanigans this year, and we wish them luck at the Bonnie Lake competition next week. So our final visiting team tonight is Team 7461 Sushi Squad, currently in their 5th season of FRC. Sushi Squad is a community-based team out of Redmond, and they provide learning opportunities and real-world engineering experience to high school students without access to a robotics team. In their 4 previous seasons, they've claimed some impressive accolades. As a rookie team, they won the District Rookie All-Star Award and qualified for the World Championship. And in years since, they've continued to prove their skill despite being a fairly new team, winning the Engineering Inspiration Award and Entrepreneurship Award in the 2022 season. Now that you know a little bit more about them, I'm excited to present their 2023 challenger, Tamaki.
How's it going, guys? So that's our robot Tamaki. I'm Hitesh. I'm the captain of engineering here at Sushi Squad. And actually, I was supposed to have a co-presenter. He's feeling a little under weather, so I'll try to do his part as best as I can. Yeah, so we're proud to present Tamaki. But before Tamaki was alpha. It doesn't have any of the cool parts or the cool paint or the cool functionality. It barely worked. But this is what we built in the first week and a half, 2 weeks of the season. We kind of decided on our strategy. We wanted to be able to score this one actually doesn't score L3. We were just testing L2, but we want to be able to score all of it. We wanted to get auto balance tested, and we wanted to be able to intake something from the ground, and we just had to go with cubes as they score a lot more points than cones do. They're more viable than cones are. So we built this thing out of wood and basic CAD in pretty much 10 days. All of the metal on there is stock metal that we just cut. And yeah, so this was kind of a new process that we're trying out this year. Where basically we built an alpha bot and then we have a beta bot. The goal behind the alpha bot is so programming and drive practice can get started week 1, and we can have that going while we're building our second bot. So processes are running in parallel, so we're basically getting more time for our season than we would usually get if we just went with one robot. This enabled our driver, who's actually new this year, to get a lot more practice, and he's doing a lot better now. And then for us to also test a lot of mechanisms and a lot of even just strategy on a robot before it went on to our final robot. Up here you can see our final robot, Tamaki. This is the actual finished robot. Has over-the-bumper intake, very similar to last year's Rapid React. When we actually initially baited on alpha, we just kind of copied the CAD over, so because the cubes are very similar to the balls from last year, so it actually works out really easily. And then it has an over-the-bumper intake very similar to Rapid React, and the main competition bot has pass-through, so the cubes go in from the front, and then they go into the manipulator, which holds the cubes and the cones. It can do both, and then it scores from the other side. So this helps speed up our autos significantly and actually helps speed up our cycles significantly too. We were running almost 25-second scoring cycles with our alpha robot, and when we switched to our beta, we were hitting almost 16-second cycles with just by switching to pass-through, because that reduced the amount of rotation we had to do when scoring. And it also reduced the braking of the robot. With the alpha, you can run the arm into the intake, which can cause a lot of problems with ripping the whole intake off, and that doesn't happen anymore with this one. So we also painted the robot. As you can see, our team is known for a lot of imagery things, so we always paint our robots. This year, we actually had a sponsor machine out all of the gussets on here after we decided on a CAD, and we painted it all to look really nice. And it's only for the beta. We don't have the time to do it for alpha. But so I just want to talk about it because it's kind of cool, and the robot looks really cool with or without the bumpers and all the paint on it. We also did a pretty unique pneumatic setup that I wanted to talk about because we spent a good amount of time on it. Our arm actually extends using pneumatics and using air pressure because we just wanted to reduce the complexity to run belt runs or to run a motor and a telescope and a whole thing for that. So we just decided to stick with pneumatics. And so when we initially did it, as you saw in the reveal video, the arm pneumatics were relatively slow, and that caused a lot of issues in our autonomous and even during our regular scoring. So one of our students actually ended up developing a new diagram for pneumatics that helped speed it up pretty significantly. Usually you have all of your tanks on one pressure, and then so he figured out that if you add a buffer pressure and split the tanks up, that can actually speed up the pneumatics a lot, and that actually helped us reach a lot of autos, which we predicted we'd be able to, but weren't. And so we spent a good amount of time on it, but changing it all up helped us a lot for the pneumatics. And we're currently also working and have, as of today, figured out a fast and reliable auto balance. So this was some of the initial testing videos, and at the end of today, after our field day, we were able to get it balancing really quickly at the end of all of our autos and even during our teleop. And the bumpers enable it to go over and jump over the charge station as necessary. All of those things actually work out really well. Currently, we've got for autos, we've got a two-piece with balance, and are working on just 3 pieces total. And we also have an auto on both sides. So our autos are going well, and they are hopefully going to be working really well by our competition this Friday. So there's good news on that front, hopefully. So this was a video of one of our auto testing days. And then finally, I want to present our scouting app. Unfortunately, one of my co-presenter isn't here to talk about it. I'm not super involved in this, but our programming students have done a great job with this. They've built out a full scouting app for this season for Charged Up, and it's actually built so you can actually change it for any games in the future. And we've rebuilt it from our last year where we struggled a lot with. We tried using a server, and that's not legal at competitions and all of that stuff. So now this one just uses a QR code, which then you can the main computer just scans it, and we're able to actually get all the data and analyze it relatively quickly. We actually debuted and tested it at GPK with a few teams like Saints Robotics, and it worked out really well, and we actually have pretty good data on how GPK actually went from all the scouters. Yeah, and part of this is I wanted to talk about our programming sub-team. We implemented a new system this year where we actually have a secondary programming sub-team and almost a pathway to go from programming 2 to programming 1. So one team works on the robot, and then the secondary team works on auxiliary projects that are very important also, like this one. So yeah, shout out to programming 2 who worked on all of this along with our programming lead. Unfortunately, they're not here, but yeah, so that's our robot and that's our scouting app. Thank you all.
So that just about wraps it up for our guest presenters tonight. I'd like to give them all a huge, huge shout out. They have been working hard since last November when we invited them out to this event. They've been working with us to get us footage, to get us scripts, and all kinds of other wacky resources that we needed from them in order to make this whole graphic setup happen. So please give them another round of applause. They have worked super, super hard to make this happen. But with so many teams here tonight, I'd like to sort of go through the different district competitions that are happening from last week until a couple weeks from now, which will mark the end of the district qualifier period. So let's take it away with Glacier Peak. Your Glacier Peak event recap will be featuring Illusion by ESPA, and the event was a week 1 competition that happened last week. There we saw 2 of our reveal teams compete, Team 2976 the Spartabots and Team 4131 the Iron Patriots. Hosted at Snohomish High School, we ended the weekend as quarterfinalists, but 4131, they made a run all the way to finals where they fought a valiant battle against teams 2910, 2930, and 1778. They also took home the Engineering Inspiration Award, which netted them an additional 8 district points. Next week in Yakima, Washington, the Pacific Northwest Sundome event will happen, where Team 4131, the Iron Patriots, and Team 7461 Sushi Squad will compete. Sundome is held in the accordingly named Sundome State Fair Park in Yakima, Washington, and we expect to see teams and robots that are far more refined than what we had last week in week 1. Also happening next week is the Bonnie Lake District event, where Team 948 NRG and Team 5937 MI Robotics will compete. This event is the second of 2 PNW district events that will happen during week 3. Our district owns 2 fields, so we're able to host multiple events every weekend to try to get as many teams as possible to get those district points in. Your Sammamish District event will have an event recap produced by yours truly. It'll be featuring Effortless by Danger Twins, and this event is incredibly stacked with Team 948 NRG, Team 2976 the Spartabots, Team 4131 5937 MI Robotics, and Team 7461 Sushi Squad. 4 of us competing at this week 4 district event. We expect to see close scores and higher levels of competition as we near the end of the district qualifier period. Finally, Auburn is the last chance that teams will get to get in those district points to qualify for the district championship. There we're seeing just Team 4131, the Iron Patriots, compete, but it is their 3rd event. Teams are allowed 2 events that are worth points, and the 3rd one is purely just for practice. So 4131 will be using that event to sort of dial in the robot before the district championship. There it is. Featuring Attention by New Jeans. This song took the world by storm last summer, so we're going to use it for the event recap. But the PNW District Championship is going to be held in Shawnee, Washington again this week, or this year, just like last year, so we'll be taking a scenic 6-hour drive to get out there if we qualify. In the Pacific Northwest District, the top 50 teams by points will be competing in this special district event, and they'll be getting triple points at this event to try to qualify for the World Championship, whose recap is presented by ODESZA. Will be using their track Loyal. The World Championship is hosted in Houston once again this year, and we'll see, I believe, 600 or so of the top ranking teams from regionals and districts competing. The Pacific Northwest District will be sending 22 teams to represent us, and we're hoping to see a lot of the teams out here tonight that just presented their robots. We hope to see them come on back out for Houston. But yeah, that wraps it up for the events that we expect to see the teams at. So now it is time to present the robot of your host team. So that's my team's robot. We have worked incredibly hard since our World Championship run in 2018 to sort of become one of the teams that actually brought us that championship, right? We want to compete at that level, and we've been working towards that, and all 4 of our departments have seen incredible growth in the last 5 years. And we believe our 2023 contender will bring some of the strongest competition that we've ever seen to the field. And so with that, I'd like to play a short little intro reel, and then a third will take you through our build season from this year.
Human player nails the long-range shot for the Red Alliance.
And your 2018 first Robotic Challenge Power-Up champions are the Red Alliance from Hopper, 254, 148, 2976, and 3075.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Athurv, and this is my 4th year on the Skyline Spartabots. I'm going to discuss our process for this year and how we generally went about the season. This season was filled with many challenges for us, starting from our preseason, in which we couldn't have meetings due to logistical issues. However, when the season started, we got rolling quickly. Our first idea for this competition was a telescoping arm on a pivot. However, due to this being a complex mechanism for software to control, we ultimately decided to go off of it. Our second idea was a virtual 4-bar on an elevator, and this was something we were a lot more comfortable with. This was because we've done elevators in the past, and although anyone on the team right now hasn't worked with an elevator due to the past 3 years being a shooter game, it was something that we felt we could do better with. However, something that we struggled with last week at Glacier Peak was our intake, which due to some mechanical issues pretty much was unable to pick up any pieces. But in the next couple of weeks, we're gonna try to do better, and we're prototyping a lot of new things, and hopefully by Sammamish, which is our next event, we're gonna be a lot more prepared, and hopefully our robot will just in general work a lot better. With that being said, I'm proud to present our 2023 robot, Zeus.
76!
As a child, you would wait and watch from far away, but you always knew that you'd be the one that would while they all play. And you'd lay awake at night and scheme of all the things that you would change, but it was just a dream. Here we are, don't turn away now. We
So that is Zeus right there for you, our 15th season robot. At Glacier Peak, like Athurv mentioned, it didn't really perform up to the standards that we were really expecting it to perform. But I think with some improvements that we are currently working on right now for Sammamish, we believe that Zeus will be a very strong contender for the 2023 season. So let's take a dive into the technical details of our robot, starting with the drivetrain. Powered by the Swerve Drive Specialties Mark IV modules, this drive base is a fairly standard square shape that we've started to see take over the Pacific Northwest as Swerve becomes more and more popular. A unique aspect of our drivetrain this year, though, is the inclusion of the 3 small 3D printed shims that lie on each of the drive rails. These are just about 1/4 of an inch thick, and so they expand our 29 by 29 inch drive rails into a 29.5 by 29.5 inch frame perimeter. This gives us a little bit more space. For context, in FRC, you are only allowed to start your robot during a match with everything inside of the frame perimeter, which is infinite vertical volume formed by sort of the widest parts of your robot. And so with those little shims right there, we get a little bit of extra frame perimeter using our slightly smaller metal rails. Another thing to note, we are sticking with L2 gearing this year. This is partially due to the fact that we couldn't buy new modules this season, but also because we believe that they provide the best balance of acceleration and top speed. So moving on to the superstructure, which contains our elevator, arm, and intake. Let's start with the elevator. We stuck a single-stage system onto Zeus this year. This is mostly to keep things fairly simple, and it's a combination of 2 Thrifty Bot bearing blocks and 1 custom bearing block that hold it onto those 54-inch side rails. Something unique to mention about the design of this year's elevator is that our carriage has the bearing blocks mounted fairly low there, and so that allows our carriage to actually extend about 6 inches past the top of the rails that hold it on. This gives us a little bit of extra extension, and while we didn't actually end up needing it for any of our intake designs for Glacier Peak, we may end up needing it in the future, and it could prove to be something useful. Mounted to the carriage is the arm, which is currently undergoing some changes, but I'll highlight the system that you saw in the video and at Glacier Peak. This arm was a virtual 4-bar mechanism similar to the one that 5937 presented just earlier, and it completes the horizontal extension that's necessary to score onto the level 3 grid slots. There's nothing incredibly special about this system other than the fact that we may have a different and simpler mechanism on Zeus for the next event. You can see in the picture right there, it's sort of extending out horizontally, and that allows us to score onto those level 3 slots, which are a little bit recessed compared to the rest of them. Moving on to the intake, you saw 2 different intake designs during the reveal video, and those were both in use at the Glacier Peak competition at some point or another. The original intake design is the one that's the very top design back there. That was what we had mounted on the robot initially, but due to a series of failures, we ended up replacing it with a design similar to the one that's in the bottom right corner. This design cannot score onto level 3 because it lacks the horizontal and vertical extension necessary, but it did actually enable us to play during elimination matches because before that point, our intake had pretty much been unable to score any pieces. And then off to the left there is just another design that was come up with at some point during the season. We expect to continue iterating our intake a lot. We believe that it is the most important part of your robot this year. A lot of teams are capable of getting the piece to level 3, but having ineffective mechanisms to intake those cones and cubes and to hold them in your robot very solidly, so that you can, drive through defense, drive through bumps without dropping your pieces is very important, and we're hoping that we'll have a more effective design in place by Sammamish. So that kind of sums it up for Zeus. I think from a programming standpoint as well, that's something that I forgot to mention earlier, but from a programming standpoint, Zeus is fairly simple. It's very straightforward compared to a lot of the elevator bots that we're seeing this year. Obviously, lots of PID loops to control various position states. But compared to last year, where there was a lot more physics work involved, I think this year our programming team has found it to be a unique and interesting challenge. And I think the programming team is largely enjoying their job this year. But that sort of sums it up for Zeus. We're super excited to play with the bot in the charged up season, and Glacier Peak has given us some incredibly valuable insight into the robot's performance, despite the relative flop that the competition was for us. So now I'd like to take some time to talk about the format of our robot reveal events. In just 2 years, we've made leaps and bounds in the production value of these events, and we don't plan on stopping here. Our media team continues to expand every year, allowing us to do more and push the boundaries of what's possible in FRC media. The 2023 reveal event that you saw tonight was a culmination of about 8 months of work, from the initial planning stages all the way to the reveal video production that wrapped up literally less than 48 hours ago. These videos were still in premiere on Saturday morning, something like that. But we've made a whole host of upgrades to the stage tech, from the lighting in front of me to what goes on to drive the graphics on the screen. And this is an industry that typically keeps their secrets very well hidden. Live production is surprisingly difficult to learn about, and we found that we had to just ask people that happen to know or get lucky with a lot of the stuff that we were doing. So there's a lot of trial and error with the production process, but we believe that we are largely ready to expand the event going into 2024, and we hope to be able to host up to 12 teams next year. And so speaking of which, we began the early stages of production for the 2024 reveal event just about 2 months ago, and I'm excited to share a little bit of information for you in preparation for next year. So every year we come up with a mantra for our robot reveal event, as well as our season mantra. And as you've probably already seen all over the place, this year's mantra was Be Bold, and the accompanying ingredient was burnt titanium. And this is also sort of parallel with our year 15 branding standards. And so as we moved into the 2024 event planning, we sort of found a theme that really caught our eye, and it really embodied our mentality well going into the season. And we think it has incredible potential to produce a cohesive and unique event brand for next year. So that being said, I am proud to reveal to you the 2024 Robot Reveal Mantra and Gradient. Yep, it's going to be space themed. So in 2024, we are going to be inviting teams to aim high with us as we produce the largest reveal show that we have ever attempted. And in order to facilitate this, we'll be making a couple of changes to the format. As I mentioned earlier, we plan on hosting upwards of 12 teams, so we obviously won't be able to produce all of the reveal videos for them like we did this year. So to get around that, we'll be splitting the invitation process into 2 application cycles: advanced selection and bring your own reveal. So the first of these 2 is the advanced selection process, we'll explain more as we get sort of closer to them, but to give you a little bit of a preview now, advanced selection is going to be the earlier of the 2 processes, opening up in June and having a 2 or 3 team roster by July. This process will follow a very similar workflow to teams that worked with us this year, where we'll work with each individual team to produce an incredible reveal video. We're starting this process a lot earlier this year, as we ended up with a lot of unforeseen circumstances this year that ended up with a much tighter schedule than we would have liked. So we're opening this up in June this year to give us 5 whole extra months of planning time. Now, the second of these two processes is going to be called the Bring Your Own Reveal group, and this is going to be a significantly lower commitment option than teams that worked with us this year. The process will open in January, and you'll be able to film and edit your own reveal and then submit it to us for final copyright checks and to add, the gradient or the graphics that we had at the end of each video this year. You saw with the team numbers coming in and all of that. That's something that we need to add to those videos. And so you'll be signing up in January of 2024 for those slots, and we'll be able to take about 10 teams in that cycle, which hopefully will get us to our 12-team goal. So that just about sums it up for information for Year 16's 2024 robot reveal. We'll be obviously sharing more information as we get closer to that event. But we have made it to the end of the content tonight, and we did not have any crazy technical errors like we did last year. It's a miracle. But I'd like to thank our production team tonight for putting in hundreds of hours of work to get us to where we are today. I've already mentioned them a couple of times, but these guys deserve a whole bunch of credit for the work that they've put in. We'd also like to thank the district and school staff who were incredibly helpful to us as we navigated the logistics of setting up the building for this event. Next, to all of the FRC students in the audience and watching online today, I'd like to congratulate you on the completion of another build season, and from my team to yours, we wish you luck in the charged up season. Finally, our team's executive board deserves a massive shout out for supporting the media department as we work to get this event ready. Leading the team has been a massive logistical, mental, and scheduling struggle for all of us, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for the work that they've done to keep our team on schedule this year. And to finish up, I'd like to mention that similar to last year, our robot banner pre-order will be happening after the event, where you can pick up a Zeus banner as well as some of the merch from the other teams here tonight. I don't think actually teams brought any merch, so it's just our team here tonight, but you'll be able to pick from robot designs ranging from 2018, our world champion robot, to 2023, this year's robot Zeus. Banners are $25 each, or if you buy 4 of any year, you could even buy 4 of the same banner if you want. It's $80 instead. We're also selling our goat hoodies. These are new for this year. We usually strap a goat to our robot, a little stuffed goat, and it's just sort of been a little tradition on our robot. We decided to sort of put it on a hoodie this year. Those hoodies are going to be $45. They're really high quality garments this year, so unfortunately they're a little bit more expensive than we would have liked, but you can also order those for $45 each just outside the doors after the event. But I mean, at this point, you are free to head out, order posters and stuff. One thing to note about pickup, so for robot banners, obviously we don't have them all ordered yet, so you'll be pre-ordering them and paying for them today, but we will get them all ordered in and you'll be able to pick them up in just a couple of weeks. If you would like to pick them up at a different school, please let Crystal know. Crystal is going to be helping run the booth outside of the doors. Let her know that you would like to pick it up with team, for example, Team 4131. You'll be able to grab it at Liberty instead of coming all the way back up to Skyline to grab all of your stuff when it comes in. We do have a limited inventory of goat hoodies available right now, so if you would like one, you can grab them now. Sizes obviously are subject to limitation. But yeah, you guys are free to head out. We'll be bringing out the 2 robots that people brought out to the Commons. You can ask them questions, technical questions, and the production crew will be hanging around either near the stage or in the Commons if you'd like to ask us any production-related questions. We are happy to answer them. But yeah, thank you all for coming out, and it's been a great night.
Blackpink in your area. Blackpink in your area.
Being a bad girl, I know I am, and I'm so hot, I need a fan. I don't want a boy, I need a man. Click, clack, bada bing, bada boom. 문을 박 차면 모두 날 바라본 굳이 애써 노력 안 해도 모든 남자들의 코피가 팡팡팡 팡팡 바라바라 팡팡팡 지금 날 위해 축배를 짠짠짠 Hands up 내 손에 butterfly 해니 네가 말로만 듣던 걔가 나야 Jenny 춤추는 불빛은 날 감싸고도 Black to the pink 어디서든 특별해 Oh yes 쳐다봐 Boom, baya.